Meeting Whisper here was something Lin Chia never expected. As one of the three oldest gods of the ancient god church, Whisper had left the deepest impression on Lin Chia and his team. Whether it was the existence of the Believers, taking away Zai Gu the jailbreak at the fasting hall, or directly causing the underworld altar incident that led to the evacuation of Anta County, he was one of the greatest adversaries the Nightfall team had faced throughout their growth. However, the Whisper before Lin Chia's eyes was obviously much younger than the one they had encountered. He looked only in his 20s, yet his every movement already carried an elegant quality that didn't match his age. In this era, Whisper already appeared to be in his 20s, which meant that the Whisper they had seen before was at least in his 60s. In Lin Chia's mind, he recalled again the image of that elegant young man in a tailcoat. As expected of one of the three gods of the ancient god church, truly an old monster. Please enjoy your meal. A steaming bowl of noodles was placed in front of Lin Chia, who nodded and began eating as if nothing had happened. Although Lin Chia kept his head down while eating and didn't look at Whisper at the opposite table again, he could feel the other's gaze lingering on him. Lin Chia's stare just now had made Whisper sense something unusual, but the young Whisper didn't take it too seriously. After all, he had just become a member of the ancient god church, hadn't participated in many operations, had never directly confronted any night watchmen, and wasn't even on their wanted list yet. He was just a regular person coming to eat noodles at a noodle shop. How could anyone possibly see through his identity? Besides, he knew the appearances of all members of Squad 007 by heart, and this young man before him wasn't one of them. With this thought, Whisper relaxed and the sound of his noodle slurping grew louder. In the old noodle shop, Lin Chia and Whisper, separated by just one table, silently ate their noodles with hidden agendas. Finally, Whisper finished his noodles, took out several coins from his pocket and arranged them neatly on the table. "Keep the change," Whisper said softly as he wiped the corners of his mouth with a white handkerchief, as if he were not in a noodle shop but in an elegant high-end Western restaurant. Whisper picked up his black briefcase and walked out. After Whisper left, Lin Chia also stood up and pointed to the coins on the opposite table. "I'm his friend. Put my bowl on his tab." Without waiting for the owner to respond, Lin Chia pushed open the door and left, following behind Whisper. Whisper passed through several streets and stopped at a small store in front of a factory. "I need to make a call," Whisper said, his gaze falling on the landline phone on the table. He picked up the receiver and began dialing. A few seconds later the call connected but Whisper didn't speak. Instead he hung up the receiver. Under the puzzled gaze of the store owner, Whisper took out 20 cents from his pocket, placed it on the table and then turned to leave. "Weirdo," the owner muttered, looking strangely at the departing Whisper as he pocketed the money. Just then another young man wearing a lake blue work uniform came to the phone. "Excuse me, I need to make a call," Lin Chia smiled, reaching for the receiver. In the owner's blind spot, a strange shadow crept onto his palm. A red-pupiled black eye silently opened in his palm. In the vision of the black eye, time on the dial phone rapidly rewound, quickly revealing the numbers Whisper had pressed earlier, then gently closed and disappeared. A moment later Lin Chia released the receiver. "Never mind, I don't need to call anymore." With a wave of his hand, Lin Chia walked away under the owner's almost cursing gaze. While tracking Whisper from a distance, Lin Chia reached out and lightly tapped the radio at his waist. "Jung Air, are you there?" Intermittent static came from the radio. "Shh. I'm here. I have a landline number for you to check." Lin Chia quickly repeated the string of numbers he had memorized. "All right, I'll look into it right away. Shh. 7 night." And Qingyu's voice came through the radio. "Qingyu, how are things on your end? I went through all the Night Watchman Squad files in Huaihai City for the past 20 years and found something interesting." Lin Chia raised an eyebrow. "What is it? Have you heard of the Bays?" "Bays?" Lin Chia pondered for a moment. "You mean the mythical beast from Great Xia legends?" "That's right." And Qingyu continued, "According to legend, Bays is an auspicious divine beast with a gentle nature. It understands the principles of all things and is dedicated to punishing evil in the world. Therefore, whenever Bays appears, it heralds peace in the region." "What does this have to do with our current mission?" "According to the Night Watchman records in Huaihai City, 5 years ago, they discovered a mystery by the Huangpu River, suspected to be Bays. Hearing this, Lin Chia was slightly startled. A mystery born from Great Xia mythology? That's quite rare. Based on Great Xia's exploratory analysis, the mysteries that emerged around the world mostly came from different local folk tales or rumors. The more widespread these rumors and tales, the stronger the corresponding mystery would be. For example, entities like Planchette and Snow Woman in Lin Chia's hospital all came from widely spread legends. Divine beasts from Great Xia legends might have indeed appeared in history, but so far Lin Chia hadn't seen any. But strangely, this file about Bays only records the process of encountering it with no record of what happened afterward. It feels like someone erased part of it, and Qingyu paused. Although I don't know if this is related to the current disaster, it's at least a breakthrough. I'll ask the members of Squad 007 later. If they really don't trust me, I'll have to use some special methods. Don't go too far, Lin Chia couldn't help but remind him. Don't worry, I know my limits. The radio connection cut off and Lin Chia strapped it back to his waist. Just then, Whisper's figure in the distance flickered and disappeared into a complex alleyway. Was he discovered? Lin Chia narrowed his eyes and quickly followed. Whisper, dressed in a suit, moved like a specter through the deserted alleyways. He occasionally glanced behind him, his brows slightly furrowed. Since leaving the noodle shop, he had vaguely felt someone following him. Although each time he looked back to test he found nothing unusual, his instinct told him that this matter might not be so simple. In any case, he needed to ensure no one was following him before proceeding. As Whisper continued to move, there was still no figure appearing behind him. Just as he thought he was being paranoid and was about to leave, a figure suddenly appeared in the alleyway in front of him. Lin Chia, dressed in a lake blue work uniform, was leaning against the gray-white wall, smiling at him. Running? Where do you think you're going? Whisper. Lin Chia's words fell and Yu froze in place. Yu? Who is Yu? A bewildered expression appeared on Yu's face. Lin Chia suspiciously looked Yu up and down, then sneered. As expected of one of the three oldest gods of the ancient god church, you can still perform flawlessly. Unfortunately, I would recognize you even if you turned to ashes. The confusion in Yu's eyes grew more intense. But the words, ancient god church, made his heart tighten, causing him to take half a step back as his gaze sharpened. Are you from Squad 007? They actually had hidden personnel. Lin Chia smiled without saying a word. How did you discover me? You couldn't help but ask this question. This wasn't just about when he accidentally exposed himself. He had never appeared on the Night Watcher's radar before, so there was no need to hide at all. Under these circumstances, how did this man discover him? Could he predict the future? Lin Chia shrugged. Sorry, I'm a prophet. At this point, Yu no longer needed to hide. His gaze concentrated as his infinite-level spiritual power surged forth. A dim nightmare instantly blossomed beneath his feet, enveloping Lin Chia's figure within it. This was Yu's divine domain, sequence 018. Dream Divergence. The sky quickly darkened, the surrounding alleys disappeared, and all that could be seen was a sea of scarlet, boiling magma surging and rolling. In the center of this magma sea, a football field-sized patch of cracked earth floated above the magma, as if the slightest mistake would cause it to be swallowed by the lava. Lin Chia and Yu stood on this sole piece of ground in the middle of the magma sea. After entering the nightmare space, Yu's previously panicked expression quickly calmed down. He stared at Lin Chia and spoke flatly, his tone containing boundless confidence. No matter how you discovered me, this place will be your grave. Is that so? Lin Chia's lips curved slightly upward. On the floating ground above the magma, Lin Chia suddenly raised his right foot and stomped down hard. Boom! An invisible ripple swept across the entire nightmare space. The churning magma suddenly stopped, the embers floating in the wind became embedded in the air, and this world seemed to have been paused, instantly frozen. Terminal King's Law, Divine Domain Counter. With Lin Chia's Klein-level spiritual power, countering Yu's divine domain, which was only at the infinite level, was extremely easy. In this nightmare space he could even briefly gain complete control. With just a thought, nothing in this nightmare could harm him in the slightest. On the motionless broken ground, Lin Chia, dressed in a lake blue production uniform, slowly stepped forward, smiling as he walked toward the dumbfounded Yu. I'd like to see how you Plan to make this my grave? Yu looked around in astonishment, his eyes filled with disbelief. What did you do? Watching Lin Chia approach with a smile, anxiety appeared in Yu's eyes. He activated his divine domain again, actively shattering this frozen magma nightmare as a brand new nightmare quickly reconstructed. The magma dissipated and a blood-colored land piled with corpses appeared out of nowhere. A crescent moon hung upside down in the sky, and under the pale moonlight horrifying demons emerged from the ground, frantically rushing toward the approaching Lin Chia. Hell nightmare. Lin Chia glanced around and shook his head with some regret. Your hell is too fake. Let me show you what a real hell looks like. The moment Lin Chia's words fell, gray-white embers floated down from the sky. The demons racing across the blood-colored land suddenly paused as huge lumps of flesh bulged from their backs, splitting open to reveal countless scarlet insects squirming inside, forming red eyeballs that all turned toward Yu in the distance. These monsters covered in insect eyes involuntarily gave Yu goosebumps. He fearfully stepped backward, suddenly hitting something hard behind him, causing him to stop abruptly. He stiffly turned his head to look, only to see a tall wraith covered in disgusting bloody organs with more than a dozen squirming insect eyes on its head, twisting frantically in the ashes. Its pale hollow eyes stared fixedly at Yu below, and a creepy laugh suddenly rang out. Look. Do I look like an angel? Yu, only in his early 20s, had never encountered such a situation before. His pupils suddenly contracted as he cried out, waving his hands wildly in the air. The surrounding nightmare receded like a tide and the two returned to the alley. Yu staggered backward, his back hitting the wall hard before he barely stabilized himself, breathing heavily. You were controlling my divine domain? How is that possible? Yu's eyes, still recovering from shock, stared fixedly at the silently smiling Lin Chia. My divine domain is Sequence 018, Dream Divergence. Right? Lin Chia waved his hand dismissively. It's not a rare ability. I could randomly find a dog that could do it. Do you believe me? Impossible. Yu shouted with all his might. This is a divine domain. In the world besides that person only I as the proxy have. Before Yu could finish, Lin Chia raised his hand and pressed on empty space. In a brilliant magical light, a pug wearing a tailcoat waddled out. The moment he saw this pug, Yu suddenly froze. For some reason he sensed a very familiar aura from this dog. Yu's mouth opened slightly. Lin Chia patted Wang Sai's head, glanced at Yu and said, Next I ask you answer understand? In your dreams. Yu responded decisively. Hearing Yu's answer, Lin Chia sighed, his face showing an as expected expression. In that case don't blame me for being ruthless. Lin Chia removed his hand from Wang Sai's head, looking at Yu with a hint of sympathy in his eyes. Watching Wang Kai gradually stand up on two legs, Yu suddenly felt an extremely ominous premonition. What are you going to do? Woof. The same nightmare space rolled out from Wang Sai's body, instantly forcing Yu's consciousness into it. Wang Kai had been at the Klein level for a long time. With the same dream divergence, he could absolutely crush Yu, who was only at the infinite level. In Wang Sai's nightmare, Yu's pupils gradually dilated as if he had seen something extremely terrifying. Even his body trembled uncontrollably and his face turned pale. After several dozen seconds, Yu's throat moved and he suddenly bent over. Vomit. Ugh. In the valley, Li Qingqiang, who was maintaining the entire fictional world, turned pale and immediately began to vomit violently. This sudden incident startled Wang Qing, Nye Jinshan, and the others who were watching nearby. Why did he suddenly start vomiting? Wang Qing asked in surprise. Nye Jinshan frowned slightly, closed his eyes and carefully sensed for a moment. There's no trace of external interference and the virtually reconstructed world hasn't had any problems. It seems to be his own physiological reaction. Physiological reaction? Did he see something he shouldn't have? Most likely. Something he shouldn't have seen. Wang Qing looked at Li Qingqiang vomiting frantically in the wasteland, curiosity appearing in her eyes. After hesitating for a moment, she couldn't help but ask, Old Nya, what do you think he saw? I don't know. Aren't you curious? Why should I be curious about this? He's already vomiting like this, it must not be anything good. I know it's nothing good. But, aren't you curious about what could possibly disgust old Li this much? As Wang Qing spoke, the light in her eyes grew brighter and she became strangely excited. Things that can disgust old Li this much are rare. Nie Jinshan gave her a helpless glance. If you're really that curious, why don't you go see for yourself? Wang Qing pursed her lips, staring intently at Li Qingqiang, who was almost vomiting up his gastric juices. It was as if a cat was constantly scratching at her heart, making her whole body uncomfortable. Fine. I'll risk it. Wang Qing made up her mind, jumped down from the mountain, and quickly rushed to Li Qingqiang's side. She took a deep breath and resolutely placed her hand on Li Qingqiang's shoulder. Ugh. Enough. Enough, Lin Qie. Whisper waved his hands in terror while shouting loudly. Seeing that Whisper had actually called out his name, Lin Qie was stunned, then quickly reacted, Gun brother? Is that you, Gun brother? Stop. Damn it. Make this cursed dog stop. Okay. Lin Qie waved his hand and sent Wang Kai back to the god's mental hospital. Whisper, whose face was as pale as paper, slumped like mud against the wall, his eyes looking up at the sky completely hollow. Gun brother. Lin Qie tentatively spoke. Whisper lay on the ground, panting heavily for several minutes before struggling to sit up. Hell, where did you get such an exceptional pug? Whisper started with a curse, his expression suggesting he wanted to skin Wang Kai alive. Lin Qie smiled apologetically. I'm sorry, Gun brother. I didn't know that when it used its ability on Whisper you could also see it. Usually this is my method for interrogating enemies. This world is built according to my subconscious. Of course I can see it. Whisper rolled his eyes and weakly said, being your enemy must be the worst luck in 8 lifetimes. Anyway, continue with your questions, but don't use that dog. You hear me? Lin Qie nodded repeatedly. Whisper slowly closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, his expression was empty and devoid of life. Lin Qie tentatively shook his head. Hey, wake up. Whisper's unfocused pupils gradually contracted, and his eyes looked at Lin Qie with terror. I ask you, who are you? My name is Chen Erniu. Hearing this name, Lin Qie's mouth twitched. He looked at Whisper before him with a strange expression, unable to connect the name Chen Erniu with the elegant figure in a tailcoat. Probably at this time, Whisper hadn't yet given himself the name Whisper. You were walking so fast just now, where were you planning to go? Lin Qie stared into his eyes. Whisper opened his mouth, and after a long while he finally spoke haltingly. I was going to the Huangpu River. What were you going to do at the Huangpu River? Lin Qie asked coldly. Besides you, how many others from the ancient God Church have come? With these 2 consecutive questions, Whisper's face grew increasingly troubled, and his gaze turned toward the black briefcase he had left in the alley not far away. Lin Qie noticed his gaze and quickly got up to retrieve the black briefcase. Taking advantage of Lin Qie's brief departure, a fierce look appeared in Whisper's eyes. He gritted his teeth and suddenly raised his right hand to strike his own forehead heavily. Lin Qie, who had just picked up the briefcase, caught this in his peripheral vision and his heart sank. This is bad. Bang. As Whisper's palm struck his head, a dull thud sounded and fresh blood splattered on the white wall. His body fell limply and he stopped breathing. Whisper knew clearly that the young man before him was simply too strong. No matter how he tried to run, he would never escape from his grasp. So he decided to create an opportunity to end his own life quickly and cleanly, avoiding further torture. Lin Qie's face was extremely grim. He hadn't expected Whisper to commit suicide so decisively. In his impression, Whisper seemed to always be far from these 2 words. However, the current Whisper was still in the early stages of development, so this choice wasn't surprising. Given the circumstances, he could only obtain clues through other means. After a moment, he shifted his gaze from Whisper's corpse and opened the black briefcase in his hand. The briefcase was light, and when opened, it contained only a glass tube filled with deep red liquid. Lin Qie held the glass tube and gently shook it, confusion appearing in his eyes. What is this? Lin Qie pondered for a moment and a guess came to mind. Just now, Whisper said his destination was the Huangpu River, and the direction he had been heading was indeed toward the Huangpu River. Could they be planning to poison the Huangpu River? The great disaster that swept through all of Huaihai and caused millions of casualties, could it be a poison disaster? Lin Chia turned on the radio with a grave expression. After some electromagnetic interference, and Qingyu's voice came through from the other end. What is it, Chia? I encountered Whisper and found some clues from him. Lin Chia briefly recounted what had happened, then continued, we don't know the purpose of this liquid yet. I'll send someone to deliver it to you soon. Please analyze it as quickly as possible. No problem. After a pause, and Qingyu continued, however, what you just said about poisoning the Huangpu River, it does seem possible. Why? The phone number you asked Jiang Air to check has yielded some clues. However, due to the underdeveloped communication technology of this era, even Jiang Air couldn't decode too much information. What we can confirm is that in the past half hour, there have been 8 signal sources within Huaihai City that called this number, and they all hung up immediately after connecting without transmitting any information. The locations where these calls were made are all near the Huangpu River. Lin Chia frowned slightly. Can you find their location? My fish seeds have already spread throughout Huaihai City, but besides the handbag, there's no other way to identify members of the ancient god church. Before they make a move, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack, and Qingyu sighed. What about Peng Peng and Chao Yuan? Where are they? They're both near the Huangpu River. Have them guard the riverbank. If anyone tries to throw something into the river, stop them immediately. Okay. Lin Chia thought for a moment. Also, Jiang Air should be able to track the locations of the other phone calls, right? Give me these locations and I'll follow the trail to deal with them before the situation worsens. No problem. And Qingyu reported several addresses in succession. Lin Chia memorized them and put away the radio. He pressed his hand in the empty air and Red Face, wearing a deep green caregiver uniform, appeared before him. Director. Red Face, take this handbag to Qingyu immediately. Don't reveal your true form in the city area, and try not to let others see you, understand? Yes. Red Face took the handbag, transformed into a blur, and quickly disappeared into the alley. Watching Red Face leave, Lin Chia's expression grew serious. 8 signal sources dialing the same number meant there were at least 8 members of the ancient god church here. Yu was dead, leaving 7 more. Given enough time, it wouldn't be difficult for Lin Chia to track them down one by one. But the problem was that according to Li Kengqiang, less than half an hour remained before the disaster. He wondered if there would be enough time. Lin Chia took a deep breath, transformed into a shadow of the night, and rapidly approached the nearest signal source. By the Huangpu River, car horns and ship whistles mingled together. People dressed in lake blue or pure white clothes flowed along the riverbank. The calls of vendors from old shops along the street created a lively atmosphere throughout the bund. Among the flowing crowd, Bailey Peng Peng stood alone by the shore, looking down at the flowing river water below, his eyes slightly narrowed. This aura. Peng Peng, where are you now? The radio at his waist suddenly sounded, with Qingyu's voice coming through. I'm by the river in Pudong. The ancient god church is suspected of planning to poison the Huangpu River. Keep an eye out. If anyone throws something into the water, stop them immediately. As Qingyu finished speaking, Bailey Pong Pong's brows immediately furrowed. Looking at the flowing water below, he nodded decisively. I understand. Chao Yuan is on the other side of the river. He'll handle that area. Communicate immediately if anything happens. Bailey Peng Peng was silent for a moment, but finally spoke up. Qingyu. What is it? There's something under the Huangpu River. Something? What kind of thing? And Qingyu's voice sounded confused. What did you discover? I'm not sure exactly what it is, but there's definitely something down there, and I can guarantee that this disaster is related to whatever's down there. Bailey Peng Peng took a deep breath, his voice extremely solemn. I think we should gather at the riverbank as soon as possible. I understand. I'll come over as soon as I finish things here, and Qingyu said seriously. The radio fell silent. Bailey Peng Peng hooked it back to his waist and continued walking along the riverbank, scanning his surroundings inch by inch, his vigilance at its peak. Suddenly, a figure ghosted through his peripheral vision, passing through the rushing crowd to reach the railing by the river. The figure was holding a black handbag. He reached into the bag and took out a glass tube, seemingly casually tossing it. The tube traced an arc through the air, heading straight for the flowing river below. Bailey Pong Pong's pupils contracted. With no time to think, he quickly raised his hand and made a grasping motion in the air. Disarm all things. Just as the glass tube was about to fall into the river, it suddenly froze as if gripped by an invisible hand, then rapidly flew toward Bailey Pang Pang, landing firmly in his palm. The figure who had thrown the glass tube, seeing this incredible sight, suddenly froze in place. This feat of grabbing an object from thin air was witnessed by nearby pedestrians who were also admiring the river view. They were stunned at first, then reacted by applauding and cheering for Bailey Pang Pang by the riverbank. Great trick. Do another one. That's an amazing magic trick. How did you do it? Probably has fishing line attached somewhere, but I couldn't see any flaws in the execution. Very skilled. Well done. You deserve a reward. People gathered around Bailey Pang Pang, asking him to perform again, with some even throwing coins in front of him. The lively scene attracted more and more pedestrians, their eyes filled with curiosity. The distant figure who had thrown the glass tube realized he had been discovered. Without a word, he turned and rushed toward the buildings by the roadside. Seeing this, Bailey Pang Pang quickly pushed through the crowd and rapidly pursued the figure. After breaking through the crowd, a gleam flashed in Bailey Pang Pang's eyes. A phantom image of a Taiji Bagua diagram flashed beneath his feet, and in the next moment his form vanished from the spot. Bang! The figure who had just rushed into a narrow, deserted road felt a gust of wind from behind. A foot struck heavily against his back, sending him staggering into the wall beside him. Ancient God Church? Bailey Pang Pang coldly asked, holding the glass tube. The ancient God Church member, seeing that Bailey Pang Pang had caught up, revealed a vicious look in his eyes. A sea-level spiritual energy wave surged out frantically as he gripped a black fire blade sketched from nothingness, slashing a crescent through the air toward Bailey Pang Pang's throat. Beneath Bailey Pang Pang's feet, the Taiji Bagua diagram flashed again. Before the black fire blade could touch his throat, it suddenly changed direction, instantly severing the man's arm from the root. Gen Earth Binding. Bailey Pang Pang formed a hand seal, and before the figure could cry out in pain, black ropes burst from the ground, binding him tightly in an instant. Under the pressure of Bailey Pang Pang's Klein-level spiritual power, the man had no strength to resist at all. His eyes looked at Bailey Pang Pang with terror, full of confusion and shock. When did Squad 007 stationed in Huaihai gain another Klein-level powerhouse besides their captain? Bailey Pang Pang twisted open the top of the glass tube, and a foul stench entered his nostrils. Enduring the nausea, he sniffed carefully for a moment, and anger rapidly rose from the depths of his eyes. Crack! His palm suddenly exerted force, shattering the glass tube. The light red liquid flowed onto the ground, quickly evaporating and disappearing without a trace. Bailey Pang Pang stared intently into his eyes and said grimly, "These beasts. Black pupil, can you find it?" Lin Chia stood at the public phone, a red-eyed black pupil silently opening in his palm, its gaze locking onto the phone's surface as a faint light flickered. In his field of vision, everything around quickly rewound. The sequence of pressed phone buttons reappeared, and after tracing back about 2 sets of numbers, the sequence that Whisper had dialed appeared in the black pupil's eye. After the receiver was put down, a series of footprints extended from beside the phone toward the other side of the road. "I can." Black pupil's voice sounded beside Lin Chia's ear. "I found his trail." Under black pupil's guidance, Lin Chia transformed into a shadow of night, moving at extreme speed between roads. With little time left before the disaster would break out, he had to give his all. Fortunately, the sky was gradually darkening, with amber sunlight reflecting on the roads, stretching the shadows of buildings and pedestrians. Even with this shadow of night frantically moving through the city, few people noticed anything unusual. Soon, following black pupil's directions, Lin Chia caught up with the figure who had made the phone call. The figure was mingling with the crowd, carrying a black briefcase, rapidly approaching the direction of the Huangpu River. "He's walking among ordinary civilians, making it difficult to take action." Black pupil's voice sounded grave. In this busy, bustling street, the figure was surrounded by ordinary people coming and going. Making a move here could easily alert the target and harm innocent bystanders. Lin Chia narrowed his eyes and calmly said, "Not a big problem." Trailing behind the crowd, Lin Chia forcefully stepped on the ground, and a shadow of night instantly flashed past the people in front of him. Except for the central figure carrying the briefcase, the eyes of all nearby ordinary people were covered by a veil of darkness. They only felt a moment of darkness, as if invisible hands had covered their vision. Almost simultaneously, a crisp sound of a sword being drawn rang out. Clay. White, unsheathed, Lin Chia gripped the handle, his form ghost-like as he passed through the crowd. A flash of blade light, ignoring space itself, instantly reached the back of the figure's neck. The figure felt his hair stand on end as an unprecedented sense of mortal danger enveloped him. His reaction speed wasn't slow. He immediately mobilized all his spiritual power, attempting to activate his divine void, but just as the divine void was being activated, another invisible domain covered him, forcibly suppressing his divine void. Under Lin Chia's divine void counter, this brief pause became the moment of death for his opponent. A flash of blade light crossed his neck. The head, with eyes wide in terror, was thrown high, and before the gushing blood could spray out, the body was dragged into the void by White, disappearing from the spot. The surrounding pedestrians only felt a brief flicker before their eyes as the darkness covering their vision vanished, and their sight returned to normal. From the night shadow covering their eyes, to drawing the sword, countering the divine void, killing and removing the corpse. This process seemed complex but actually took less than 2 seconds. For the ordinary people around, it was just a moment of darkness before everything returned to normal. They didn't notice that in the crowd, a figure had vanished into thin air. In a deserted alley 2 streets away, Lin Chia emerged from the void with the ancient god church member's corpse, blood spilling onto the ground. Lin Chia expressionlessly put away White, picked up the briefcase and retrieved a glass tube identical to the one in Whisper's possession. A light red liquid swirled inside, emitting an eerie glow. "Director, your strength is truly becoming more and more formidable," Black Pupil's admiring voice echoed in Lin Chia's ears. When Black Pupil first met Lin Chia, he was just a sea-level night watcher rookie. In such a short time he had already become capable of silently taking the head of a boundless-level opponent in the midst of a crowd. "Put the flattery aside and continue finding the next person's location," Lin Chia said calmly as he put away the glass tube. "Happy to serve you." Under Black Pupil's guidance, Lin Chia transformed into a ghost, silently harvesting the lives of ancient god church members in this busy, bustling city. In just over 10 minutes, Lin Chia had already killed 3 ancient god church members in succession, without anyone being able to clearly see what he looked like. Of course, this was related to the fact that most of the enemies Lin Chia encountered were at the sea, or boundless level. During this period, the ancient god church had just emerged, and its members generally had lower cultivation levels and varying strengths. Among the 3 people Lin Chia had killed, Whisper was already the strongest. Just as Lin Chia finished dealing with one ancient god church member and was about to search for the next, the radio at his waist suddenly sounded. "Chia, how's it going on your end?" "I've already killed 3 and am on my way to pursue the 4th, Lin Chia replied. "We don't have much time left. Many ancient god church members have already reached the banks of the Huangpu River. Fatty just dealt with one, and if he hadn't been able to disarm them, the river water would likely already be contaminated." A grave expression appeared on Lin Chia's face. After thinking for a moment he said, "In that case I'll go directly to the riverbank and wait. No matter how these ancient god church rats run, they'll eventually gather there." "I was thinking the same thing," and Qingyu paused then spoke again. "By the way, Fatty says there's something at the bottom of the Huangpu River." "Something? What?" "Don't know, but he says it's definitely related to this disaster." Lin Chia raised an eyebrow. "I understand. Although Fatty's intuition isn't always reliable, to be cautious, I'll go down and take a look later." "Good, you go to the riverbank first. Jiang Air and I will be there shortly." 007 Squad Headquarters. And Qingyu turned off the radio and slowly stood up from the chair at the desk, looking at the 5 members of Squad 007 who were tightly bound together before him, his expression somewhat complex. "I told you I'm really not a bad person." Ugh. And Qingyu silently peeled off the tape from one person's mouth. To prevent them from shouting and disturbing his communication with Lin Chia, he had to take some simple measures to silence them. Although these measures made him look even less like a good person. Fuck your ancient god church. Even if we die today, you won't get any information from us, the burly man shouted defiantly. Seeing this, Qingyu sighed helplessly. Then don't blame me. It might hurt a bit, try to endure it. In Qingyu's eyes, a strange purple light flickered. He suddenly extended his hand and pressed it on the burly man's head. The next moment, the man's fierce expression gradually became blank. He was directly using his ability to read the other's memories. After some time, Qingyu suddenly opened his eyes, the purple light receding like a tide. This is bad, he murmured. A shadow of the night flashed into the building's shadow by the Huangpu River, and a moment later Lin Qia's figure emerged from it. His gaze swept across the surroundings and he quickly found Chao Yuan standing on the deck of a ship, slowly moving with the river current. Chao Yuan had somehow acquired a police officer's uniform, holding a straight sword wrapped in black cloth in his arms. He didn't have the slightest air of a police officer, but rather looked like a vicious bully. His sharp eyes were fixed on the shore as if searching for something. Suddenly, his gaze fell upon Lin Qia by the riverbank and he was slightly stunned. Old Chao. Lin Qia waved at him. The ship carrying Chao Yuan quickly approached the riverbank where Lin Qia was standing. Ignoring the gazes of others, Lin Qia supported himself with one hand on the railing and flipped over, causing exclamations of surprise from the people on shore. Lin Qia landed steadily on the deck and asked with confusion, Old Chao, what are you doing here? Preventing people from throwing things into the river, Chao Yuan replied helplessly. I don't have Pong Pong's ability to disarm everything, so I can't immediately seize that liquid from the ancient god church. So I'm disguised as a police officer, letting this ship carry me on patrol along the river. This way, if someone throws something in, at least I can draw my sword in time to intercept it on the water surface. Lin Qia nodded. Have you noticed anything unusual? Nothing so far. Chao Yuan hesitated for a moment, then added, however, the waves on the river are stronger than before. Lin Qia was startled and looked down, only then noticing that the flowing Huangpu River water was constantly churning and surging, much more turbulent than usual. But strangely, there was clearly no wind on the river surface. It seems Pong Pong's intuition was right this time. There's definitely something wrong down there. Lin Qia nodded thoughtfully. Old Chao, keep watch here. I'll go down and take a look. All right. As soon as Lin Qia finished speaking, his figure flashed and plunged directly into the surging river water. The water churned as Lin Qia continued to sink in the river. The murky water made visibility extremely poor underwater. Even Lin Qia, unable to use his spiritual power to sense his surroundings, could only see clearly within 10 meters around him. Underwater, Lin Qia's brows slightly furrowed. The Huangpu River flowing through Huaihai City was too vast. Without being able to use spiritual power, it would take a lot of time to figure out what was happening below. Continuing like this would likely yield little result. Lin Qia pressed his hand in the water, and numerous brilliant magic arrays opened up. Various sea beasts emerged from the arrays, dispersing in all directions of the river current. Lin Qia stood on the back of an anglerfish, its faint light dispelling the surrounding water, allowing him to breathe freely at the bottom of the river. With limited time, summoning numerous sea beasts for a carpet search was the best option. Moreover, Lin Qia used orthodox summoning magic to call them forth, so even if the commanders saw it, they would only marvel at the wonder of magic without discovering the existence of the god's mental hospital. Lin Qia's figure moved through the dim river bottom. After some time, a muffled sound came from the depths of the distant water. Immediately after, a sea beast attendant's life force entered a near-death state, forcing it to return to the hospital. There it is. A glint flashed in Lin Qia's eyes as he controlled the anglerfish beneath his feet to rapidly approach the direction of the sound. The light from the anglerfish pushed away the river water, illuminating a corner of the dark river bottom. As he approached, a shadow gradually took shape in the distance. This shadow was about the size of a 3-story house, crouching at the bottom of the Huangpu River. The faint light illuminated one corner of it, revealing what looked like some strange beast with snow-white skin covered in faint golden patterns. This is... Lin Qia's eyes narrowed slightly. Before he could get closer to observe carefully, the surrounding water flow was suddenly compressed. River water frantically poured toward the front of the giant shadow. A figure holding a halberd stood like bedrock on the sandy bottom of the river. With a slash of the halberd, a blade of violent high-pressure water compressed into a blade instantly flew toward Lin Chia's face. A sense of danger surged in Lin Chia's heart. That thin water blade surging from the river bottom was compressed from at least several tons of river flow. Such terrifying compression had almost broken the original physical structure of the water molecules, rearranging them into something beyond the category of water. Lin Chia had no doubt that if this attack were on land, it could easily blast apart a mountain peak. And someone who could casually deliver an attack of this magnitude must be at least at the Klein boundary. There was actually someone at the bottom of the Huangpu River? Was it the ancient god church? Lin Chia dared not meet the attack head-on. He transformed into a flash of night, Zhu Zhanbai, his form slipping into nothingness, and when he reappeared he was already in front of the figure holding the halberd. Clang! The snow-white blade edge collided with the heavy halberd. The muffled boom spread through the churning river flow, and the terrifying force temporarily created a vacuum area in the water around the two of them. Lin Chia's eyes narrowed slightly, and a brilliant golden light burst from beneath his feet. The light of mortal divine domain enveloped the figure before him and the strange beast shadow behind. With this golden light, Lin Chia finally saw the beast's full appearance. It was a four-legged giant beast with snow-white skin, covered in faint golden patterns. A pair of white antlers similar to those of a deer extended from its head, nearly 2 stories high, looking quite magnificent from a distance. This giant beast was crouching among the sandy stones at the bottom of the river. Its highly bulging abdomen was rising and falling somewhat rapidly. With its breathing rhythm, the surrounding water flow swirled and churned violently, as if boiling, frantically stirring the waters of the Huangpu River. Lin Chia looked at the highly bulging abdomen, was stunned for a moment and asked in surprise. Bai Zai. Whoosh. A rapid water blade grazed past Lin Chia's nose. If Lin Chia had reacted half a beat slower, he would now be a headless corpse. Lin Chia turned to look. A middle-aged man wearing a Zhongshan suit and holding a halberd was staring at him coldly, with murderous intent surging in his eyes. Seeing the halberd made of the same material as the star blade, Lin Chia seemed to realize something. You're a night watchman? Captain of the Great Xia Night Watchman Squad 007 Tang Mingxian. The middle-aged man's deep voice reached Lin Chia's ears as he raised his halberd, his figure darting through the river water like lightning. Bastard from the ancient god church, die. Wait a minute. Lin Chia frantically dodged Tang Mingxuan's attacks while his brain worked at high speed. Suddenly, as if he had thought of something, he blurted out. I'm Li Qingqiang. The heavy halberd suddenly froze in the water flow. Li Qingqiang? Tang Mingxian frowned as he looked at Lin Chia standing before him. Are you the captain of that special squad that Commander Nye mentioned? Lin Chia saw that this question was effective and nodded repeatedly. In this era, Lin Chia and his team had no way to prove they were night watchers, so the best method was to pretend to be someone who already existed in this era. Since this fictional world originated from Li Qingqiang's memories, it meant he must have personally participated in this event. Mentioning his name might have a miraculous effect. Judging from Tang Mingxuan's reaction, it seemed he had guessed correctly. From what he said, was Li Qingqiang also once the captain of a special squad? Do you have anything to prove your identity? Lin Chia thought for a moment, then summoned his straight knife and waved it at Tang Mingxian. Before going into the water, I left my emblem on the shore. Is this enough? And Qingyu had told him that the emblems of this era were different from theirs, so naturally he couldn't show his emblem. However, the Queen Mother of the West had mentioned earlier that when the Night Watchers were first established, Commander Nye Jinshan went to Kunlun to ask her to forge these standard knives, so the straight knives of this era should be the same as the ones they carried. Seeing the straight knife in Lin Chia's hand, the vigilance in Tang Mingxuan's eyes relaxed somewhat. Before Tang Mingxian could speak, Lin Chia put away his knife and said calmly, My team members are on the shore engaging with members of the ancient god church. Captain Tang Mingxian, I think you need to give me an explanation. Lin Chia's words were carefully considered. He didn't ask what was going on with the Bai Zai, nor did he ask why the ancient god church appeared here, because he wasn't sure how much Li Qingqiang of this era should know. So he directly asked for an explanation. As for what needed explaining, that was for Tang Mingxian to figure out. Tang Mingxian was silent for a moment before slowly saying, Captain Li, concealing the existence of the Bai Zai from the higher-ups was my personal decision and has nothing to do with the other members of my team. After this is over, I will go to Beijing City to plead guilty. Hearing this, Lin Chia felt a spark of joy. It seemed that from beginning to end, not only Li Qingqiang but even the Night Watcher's leadership didn't know about this. This made things easier. Lin Chia sighed, Captain Tang, you may not understand the situation clearly. Now is not the time to discuss whose responsibility this is. There are many ancient God Church members at the banks of the Huangpu River. What you need to do now is tell me everything about this matter without any concealment. Otherwise, if something goes wrong, neither of us can bear the responsibility. Tang Mingxian looked back at the Bai Zai breathing heavily at the bottom of the river, his expression complicated. After hesitating for a moment, he began. The story goes back 5 years ago. Shh. Electromagnetic interference sounds came from the 2 radios in front of Chao Yuan. He was startled and spoke up. Jiang Air. It's me, Qingyu. And Qingyu's solemn voice came through the radio. Can everyone hear me? I can hear you, Bai Li Pongpong's voice responded. I can hear you too, Chao Yuan paused for a moment. However, 7 has already gone down to the river bottom. The radio can't go in water, so he left it with me. He's already gone down? And Qingyu muttered. Still a step too late. What happened? I searched through the memories of Squad 007 members and discovered something. And Qingyu took a deep breath. Since 7 isn't here, you listen first and relay the information to him when he comes back. All right. At the bottom of the Huangpu River, there is a pregnant Bai Zai. Bai Zai? Chao Yuan was surprised. 5 years ago, Squad 007 discovered an injured mystery in the lower reaches of the Huangpu River that was in gestation. After investigation and comparison, they confirmed this mystery was the Bai Zai from Great Xia legends. The Bai Zai is sentient and can speak human language. According to it, it was already pregnant before descending into this world. A pregnant Bai Zai has greatly reduced strength and is extremely vulnerable. What's more, it initially didn't descend within Great Xia's borders but appeared in the mist. It fought its way through and finally returned to Great Xia's territory, being washed along the Yangtze River to this place. By then it was near death and Squad 007 members used every means possible to barely save it. So, that Bai Zai is still at the bottom of the Huangpu River? Chao Yuan asked puzzledly. Has the pregnancy lasted so many years without giving birth? The battles in the mist affected its pregnancy. The Bai Zai is a divine beast of Great Xia that symbolizes good fortune and peace. The rich human energy can repair the damage to the fetus. Fortunately, Huaihai City has a large population, and after several years of recovery at the river bottom, its injuries have basically healed. According to Squad 007's predictions, it will give birth in the next couple of days. Isn't the birth of a Bai Zai supposed to be a good thing? What does it have to do with a great disaster? It is indeed a good thing, but there are 2 challenges in this process. First, when the Bai Zai gives birth, it will stir up the river water, causing huge waves that might frighten residents on both sides of the river. However, this problem is easy to solve because Squad 007's Captain Tang Mingxian has water-related abilities. As long as he stays at the river bottom, he can stabilize the Huangpu River and prevent too much disruption. Second, a Bai Zai in labor is extremely vulnerable and can easily be affected by external factors, falling into a berserk state. And Qingyu paused for a moment, then continued. Just now, I analyzed the special liquid from the ancient God Church that 7 sent me. This liquid is a potion concocted from a large amount of human blood, likely drawn from executed criminals who had killed people, and carries extreme violent energy. If this blood potion is poured into the Huangpu River, the Bai Zai giving birth will inevitably be affected. Not only will it harm the fetus, but the Bai Zai itself will also be vulnerable to attack and fall into a frenzied berserk state. And if the Bai Zai in the Huangpu River goes berserk, it would be a catastrophic disaster for the entire Huaihai City. The ancient God Church wants to contaminate the Bai Zai's child, then use our Great Xia divine beast to kill our Great Xia people? Chao Yuan's eyes turned ice cold. These beasts. According to the fish seed tracking, apart from the 3 ancient God Church members killed by 7, the remaining 5 have already reached the banks of the Huangpu River, blending into the crowd and quietly observing the river's condition. They must have realized someone was hunting them and deliberately avoided being picked off one by one. They're waiting for the Baizé to fully enter labor before acting simultaneously to disrupt it. And Qingyu looked down at the time. If this great disaster is indeed caused by the Baizé going berserk, then we have at most 2 minutes before the Baizé gives birth. Throwing packages is a method that's too easily intercepted, especially when people are already on guard by the riverside. So the two exposed ancient god church members, deciding to go all in, simply hugged their handbags and leaped down. Bang bang. Two enormous sea beasts suddenly jumped out of the churning river water, fiercely opening their terrifying jaws, precisely catching the jumping ancient god church members in their mouths. How could these poor ancient god church members have imagined that sea beasts would emerge from the seemingly normal river? However, these divine representatives weren't pushovers. Although the sea beasts were of considerable rank, the members weren't completely defenseless. The boundless realm's spiritual power exploded, several divine ruins flashed, and the sea beasts' massive mouths were forcibly torn open, creating bloody gashes from which the members emerged. But the handbags containing glass tubes had already been chewed to pieces, and the liquid inside had completely disappeared down the sea beasts' throats. Chao Yuan and Bailey Pongpong's figures flew across the river surface, each charging toward one of the ancient god church members. 3 left, Lin Chia muttered. With 2 more ancient god church members exposed, the hidden threat was further weakened. What truly troubled Lin Chia and his team wasn't the strength of these church members. To be honest, any current member of the Nightfall team could easily defeat 95% of the ancient god church members. The enemies lurking in the shadows who might strike at any moment using unknown methods were what Lin Chia's team truly needed to guard against. As the direct confrontation between the ancient god church and the Nightfall team began, the river water below became increasingly turbulent. Whirlpools emerged on the surface and huge waves continuously crashed against both shores, producing thunderous, deep rumbles. At this moment, except for the boat carrying Lin Chia's team, all other vessels had already left. Their boat was caught at the edge of a flowing whirlpool, violently rocking and shaking. And Qingyu looked down at the river surface, where faint roaring sounds emanated from the riverbed. The birth has begun, Lin Chia said solemnly. At the bottom of the Huangpu River, Tang Mingxian held his crescent-blade spear, his Zhongshan suit billowing with the currents. He stared anxiously at the bays curled up in pain before him, his eyes filled with concern. Bays, don't panic, take it slowly, deep breaths. Tang Mingxian, being a man, knew little about childbirth, let alone for a mythical beast like bays that only existed in legends. For the moment, besides these few words, he didn't know how else to comfort bays. A faint light emerged from the golden patterns on Bays' skin surface, continuously gathering toward its abdomen. Its head, topped with a pair of white horns, shook slightly, churning the surrounding water flow into chaos. But whenever these water currents were about to surge to the surface, they would be dispersed by another stable current. Powerful spiritual energy poured out from Tang Mingxuan's body, his eyes turning deep blue. Deep breaths, Bays. Don't let external factors disturb you. Roar. Low growls emerged from Bays' throat. Beneath its body, a ball of light shrouded in golden radiance slowly moved outward. Now! A voice shouted from the riverbank, and 3 figures like lightning quickly flipped over the railing, simultaneously rushing toward the churning river surface. And Qingyu coldly snorted, his eyes tinged with a deep gray. He stomped his right foot forcefully on the deck. Boom! Pale frost instantly froze the entire ship, along with the river surface below turning to ice. The rolling waves were fixed in midair. The 3 ancient god church members who had jumped down landed on the ice surface, their expressions extremely unpleasant. After the previous wave of comrades was intercepted by sea beasts, these 3 church members had learned their lesson. They protected the glass tubes in their arms to prevent them from being frozen by the frost. They forcefully stomped on the ice beneath their feet, creating dense cracks that spread across the surface. And Qingyu had only frozen a layer of ice over 2 meters thick on the river's surface. Below the ice, the water was still surging violently. Now, under the actions of the 3 church members, the ice surface was rapidly breaking apart and would soon collapse. Universal disarmament. Bailey Pang Pang stood on the shore, a massive black and white taiji diagram rotating beneath his feet, his clothes fluttering. He reached out and made a grabbing motion in the air. The outer garments of two ancient god church members, along with the glass tubes they were protecting, simultaneously flew into the air. Seeing this, the last church member's eyes flashed with determination. He also made a grabbing motion, and the three glass tubes flying toward Bailey Pang Pang froze in midair. The three glass tubes trembled continuously in the air, as if two invisible hands were constantly wrestling in midair. Bailey Pang Pang let out a slight exclamation, his expression somewhat surprised. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Three black surgical knives precisely pierced the glass tubes. The light red liquid poured down from midair, freezing into numerous ice shards before even touching the river surface. And Qingyu, carrying a black coffin on his back, waved his hand. The blood-colored ice shards floating on the river surface flew before him, compressed into a fist-sized red snowball, and landed steadily in his pale palm. And Qingyu brought the snowball to his mouth and expressionlessly took a bite. The blood-colored ice shards were forcibly crushed between his teeth and swallowed. This scene directly stunned the three ancient god church members. The tools to contaminate bays were gone, and gone very thoroughly. Qingyu, Lin Chia stood in place, dumbfounded, seemingly wanting to say something. It's fine. These liquids are toxic to bays during birth, but they can't cause any significant harm to my body, and Qingyu said calmly after finishing the entire snowball. At worst, I'll just cut open my stomach to remove it later. Lin Chia. A ghostly white shadow flashed across the ice-covered river surface, crashing into one of the ancient god church members. The latter suddenly drew a short knife from his waist and slashed at his companion. Lin Chia and Qingyu approached from the left and right, flying over to surround the last three ancient god church members on the river surface. These three weren't of high rank and had almost no ability to fight back against Lin and An. While beating up the ancient god church members, Lin Chia inwardly sighed with relief. If that string of phone calls was the method used by church members to report their positions, then all 8 ancient god church members in Huaihai City had been exposed, and all the liquid that could affect bays had been destroyed. With Tang Mingxian stationed at the river bottom, Base's birth should proceed without incident. However, Lin Chia couldn't help feeling that everything seemed too easy. After all, according to Li Qiangqiang, they had paid a price to prevent this disaster back then. Of course, it could also be because the average strength of the Nightfall team now was higher than that of the Black Dragon team back then. Regardless, Base's birth was not yet complete, so caution was still paramount. While Lin Chia was distracted, vigilantly scanning the surroundings, a figure wearing a brown Zhongshan suit had already silently approached the bank of the Huangpu River. On the banks of the Huangpu River, the members of Squad 007 had already dispersed all civilians from the riverside. They gazed at the figures in the river who were fiercely battling the ancient god church, their mouths slightly agape. Who exactly are these people? They're too powerful. Almost all of them are Klein level. When did Great Xia produce such a group of powerful fighters? Could they be that special squad Commander Nye mentioned recently? You mean Black Dragon? But even Black Dragon couldn't be this strong. Wasn't only their captain Li Qingqiang supposed to be at Klein level? Where did they suddenly come from? Whatever the case, it's good they're on our side, otherwise Huaihai would really be in trouble this time. As the members of Squad 007 exchanged comments, suddenly someone seemed to realize something and looked around in confusion. Where did Li Yu go? Don't know, he was just here. Found him, what's he doing by the river? Everyone turned to look and saw a figure in a brown Zhongshan suit standing quietly on the deserted banks of the Huangpu River, gazing at the churning water below, letting out a long sigh. Li Yu. A Squad 007 member called out, stepping forward from behind. What are you do? Before he could finish, the figure by the river slightly turned his head and glanced at him. A hazy black shadow flashed through nothingness, and the next moment, a head was floating lightly in the air. Splashing blood spattered onto the brown Zhongshan suit, yet passed through as if touching nothing. In the squad members' shocked eyes, the world tumbled and spun, with only those deep eyes like dried-up wells deeply imprinted on his retina. Li Yu. The nearby Squad 007 members, having witnessed their comrades' beheading, stood stunned for several seconds before coming to their senses. Li Yu. That's not Li Yu, the large man shouted, surging killing intent rolling out from within him. With a clang, he drew his straight blade and slashed at the figure by the river. The remaining two Squad 007 members also immediately drew their blades and followed in the attack. The figure by the river didn't even glance at them, simply taking 3 glass vials containing light red liquid from his pocket and gently tossing them toward the ice-flecked river surface. Roar! An octopus-like sea beast suddenly emerged from the river water, its suction-cupped tentacles lightning fast grabbing for the 3 glass vials, yet passing through them as if they were nothing, unable to touch them at all. In the distance, Lin Chia, who had just killed a member of the ancient god church, seemed to sense something and suddenly turned his head toward this direction. This is bad. Lin Chia's form transformed into night color, instantly flickering and disappearing, but it was already too late. This figure who had thrown the glass vials had used a Squad 007 member's identity to openly approach the Huangpu riverbank without arousing any suspicion, and then the 3 glass vials he tossed had directly bypassed the sea beast guarding the river bottom, eerily passing through it. With 2 consecutive security measures broken, even Lin Chia couldn't save the situation in time. The 3 glass vials fell into the churning river water. The glass containing the light red liquid suddenly seemed to dematerialize, and the liquid in the vials directly merged with the churning river water, instantly dyeing this section of the river red. Meanwhile, the remaining 3 Squad 007 members had reached the back of the figure by the river. Their straight blades, gleaming with black light, cut through the air with a piercing buzz, slashing toward his neck, followed by several high-speed spinning bullets. The figure by the river seemed completely unaware, merely lowering his head and unhurriedly taking out a pack of Dakianman cigarettes, flicking one out and placing it between his lips. The flashing blade touched the skin of his neck but eerily passed through. The large man holding the blade felt his hand lighten as the blade handle passed through his palm and fell away, as if the blade was merely an extremely realistic holographic projection, a false illusion that didn't exist in this world. Several bullets passed through the figure's head without causing any damage. Only one bullet grazed the Dakianman's cigarette in the corner of his mouth, the friction instantly lighting the cigarette. The figure took a deep drag, slowly exhaling the hazy smoke. Bang bang bang. 3 blood mists exploded behind him. The 3 Squad 007 members simultaneously had terrifying wounds split open on their chests. Just as these wounds were about to expand further, a shade of night suddenly descended, swallowing their forms within it. The figure raised his eyebrows slightly at this. Lin Chia stepped out from the night color. He glanced at the river water beneath his feet that had already been dyed blood red, and at the 3 critically injured Squad 007 members behind him. Rage blazed in his eyes. "Who are you?" Lin Chia asked grimly. The figure, holding the burning cigarette with one hand, took another drag and spoke calmly as he exhaled the smoke. "You can call me Yue Huai." Yue Huai? Lin Chia frowned, feeling the name was somewhat familiar. Those you just killed were all subordinates I painstakingly gathered from various parts of Great Xia. Yue Huai lightly flicked away some ash, his eyes narrowing slightly, his tone somewhat cold. "The others don't matter much, but that Qin Erniu had great potential. Do you know how much effort I put into grooming him to be my right-hand man? I worked so hard to establish the ancient god church and you've destroyed most of it. Tell me, how should I repay you?" Hearing this, Lin Chia finally remembered who this man was. Huai, the chairman of the ancient god church, the leader of the 3 most ancient evil gods, and also the earliest evil god proxy active within Great Xia's borders. Even in later times when many human powerhouses emerged and special squads gathered, when believers were extinct and whispers died, with the ancient god church on the brink of destruction, this most ancient evil god still hadn't been captured. "Damn it!" Lin Chia roared. "Qingyu, find a way to deal with this contaminated river water." As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Chia's form flickered, charging like lightning toward Yue Huai on the shore. He gripped Anbai in his hand and with a low hum, a snow-white blade light tore through the void, ignoring space to slash directly at Yue Huai's chest. But this blade light, like the straight blade and bullets before it, passed directly through Yue Huai's form, unable to cause him any harm. Lin Chia felt his hand empty as Anbai flew from his grasp. What kind of strange divine domain was this? Before Lin Chia could understand how Feng Bai had slipped from his hand, a dark light tore through the air, flashing like lightning toward his brow. In this critical moment, Lin Chia activated Night Color Flash, again his form vanishing from the spot.